So there's a lot that's been made out of Girlboss, which you posted about. I think it was last week.
Mm-hmm.
You had I think a very raw, kind of honest, and I think it was on Instagram post about it. Describe the Girlboss phenomenon and how you felt about it then and how you feel about it now.
Yeah. Girl boss is a term that in 2014, when I wrote that book, became what other people kind of was the beginning of a movement. And it did speak to all these girls who related to someone like me who was a community college dropout from Sacramento who's at an eBay store. It was a year after Lean In, and
Mm-hmm.
next to Sheryl Sandberg, I think it was like Susie Orman, maybe in the
Mm-hmm.
business book section, or having
Yeah, there's
written
nobody.
anything. And
Yeah,
there's, been all of these kind of girl boss, quasi whatever
yeah,
pop books since then. But girl boss became this term that was also really hard to trademark and part of the zeitgeist in a way that was like completely out of my control.
mm-hmm.
And it was like girl boss pillows and girl boss notebooks and girl boss everything, which was awesome, to be able to create something. It's nobody's intellectual
Yeah. That took off
property,
like that.
but
Yeah,
takes off like that is like
yeah,
such a special thing
yeah,
that like I'm really proud of. And it inspired so many women to start businesses. I've had people, I don't even talk about relationships in the book. I have had people DM me and say, like, your book gave me the confidence to leave an abusive relationship. Like
yeah.
the
That
long tail effects of like a book that
female
just,
empowerment. Yeah.
yeah. And I didn't even talk that much about being a woman in the book. That's the weird part.
Mm-hmm.
But it resonated with them. And of course, it was called Girl Boss and it was pink. Um, and over time, it was a simple time when I wrote that book.
Mm-hmm.
There was no like crazy man in the White
Yeah,
House,
this is pre 2016,
it
right?
was pre
Yeah.
2016. And so, I wrote the book from a perspective of a woman who was like on her way up and building this business and everything had been up and to the
Mm-hmm.
right. And, not long after I wrote that book, Nasty Gal, the fashion business I built for 10 years started to, stumble.
Yeah,
And then
falters.
and then in 2016, um Trump was elected, and this book that was like a little bit of a naive
Mm.
story, humorous, some business advice, quasi memoir. The term became, I think, politicized. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a girl boss, I'm a boss. And I was like, girl boss is just like a way, it's not descriptive,
Yeah.
whatever. So it's become this word that still inspires a ton of people who are in
Mm-hmm.
my DMs all day long, still reading the book for the first time and telling me stories of what's happened after they
Mm-hmm.
read the book. But then also this interesting counterpoint that points to, I think, the oversimplification of women's ambition,
Yeah.
and that lacked kind of an intersectional approach, largely because it was just written from my own
Yeah.
perspective. And so what you're referencing is this Instagram post I made that I also sent to 120,000 email subscribers of mine, that I also posted on LinkedIn, that I also tweeted the shit out of. And it got a lot of notice because this Silicon Valley, very well respected, website that reports on like breaking technology news, um, wrote this week called The Information, wrote this, pre-Halloween weekend kind of roundup. Their weekend content is kind of
Mm-hmm.
like fun. It's the weekend edition,
It's a
but
little
it
lighter.
was
Yeah.
so beneath them because it was like a BuzzFeed style roundup of the top tech themed Halloween costumes for 2022. I don't know if I was ever in tech because I built an e-commerce business on
Yeah.
other people's platforms, but hey, I'll take it. You think I'm
Sure.
relevant? Um, and it said "Girl Boss Too Close to the Sun," and it had Audrey Gelman, who was the co-founder of the Wing, with a set of wings on, like mocked up, and it said, pose as your dress up like your favorite disgraced girl boss, like Audrey
Mm.
Gelman, Sophia Amoruso, or Elizabeth Holmes, with a pair of wings that are singed at the end, like you like
Yeah.
flew
You've
too
really
close
burnt
to the
yourself.
sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you flew too close to the sun.
Yeah.
Like
You're
I'm glad I flew too close to the sun.
sure.
I mean, now I
Yeah.
know not to fly too close, but you can
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
learn
You
by
only learn that one way.
trying.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? Land on the sun? Like, I don't
Yeah.
even. Um, so like lumping Audrey, being turned into caricatures. It's one thing to be kind of in relatively balanced, often not like news pieces that have context about the term girl boss, anything like that. But to be put next to like a woman who committed fraud, who put dying people at medical risk. Because like I wasn't like a perfect founder, was just like shocking. And so I screenshotted it and I said, I don't want to be a whiner. I don't want to be like, oh, it's unfair that like I was criticized, or it's unfair. It's just hard to put yourself out there and be like, it's unfair when I still like have a great life and like I'm fine. And whatever. Right. And like the misogyny of these like pieces, these girl boss like kind of roundups of female women, feminism, capitalism, blah blah blah, are really fueled by misogyny. But for me to speak out about that is just inviting more criticism. And I've gotten to a point where I kind of just don't care. And I'm ready to kind of burn it down. And I'm like, what else are you going to say about me? You can link to my tweet from another like piece where you talk about girl boss culture. And at the very least, my perspective will be like linked back to in whatever your probably unbalanced piece is going to be, which is like at this point completely outdated. Like I don't use the word girl boss, like stop using it. Like, do I have to like write an epitaph? I'm not sure. So it's great people think, it's still relevant on that level. But I wrote a really kind of honest story about how that just like fucked up my day. Like it was mostly just about, wow, things affect me. And I realized I haven't dealt with the trauma of some of the tougher things that have happened in my life. I mean, it's mostly been a pretty amazing life. And that when I saw that piece, I just like, drove down the street in tears and like day drank an IPA by myself and like bought a pack of Capri cigarettes, like, and realized I have work to do.
Day drink.
I don't day drink. I was at a burger.
That's the most disturbing thing you've said.
I went to a burger place and all they had was beer. So I ate a burger by myself and I
like smoked a cigarette. I think that's a good way to deal with things.
Yeah, but I don't typically day
drink. It's an interesting topic because I think what's so hard about it is the joy that people take in ripping down women who try, right? Like maybe Nasty Girl worked out, maybe it didn't, right? There were things you learned from it that were great. There were things that you didn't, I think in hindsight, you probably been like, oh, I fucked that up. I shouldn't have done that. Same with The Wing, same with all sorts of outdoor voices, Away, like, and it's interesting when male CEOs fail or male founders fail, in the most part, they're not sensationalized. Like WeWork was sensationalized for, I think, really good reasons. In the same way, Elizabeth Holmes was sensationalized because that was just an that was a insane mismanagement of capital and trust and all of that. But does it bother you that they still go after that? And do you think you'll ever lose it? Do you think women will ever lose that? Or is it just always, until there's some normalization of women in business? Do you think it's just always going to be this way and you have to accept it?
I think there's also always going to be a double standard. And I think because there's so few of us to point at as successes, there are fewer of us to point at when things don't work out. It's a lot more normal for men to build businesses and fail. So if you think about the news cycle, like there's just like,
there's less clicks.
It's not going to make as much noise. I would like to start a conversation at some point that kind of forces people to think about the consequences of these pieces, because they don't see my DMs on Instagram from women who are thinking about starting businesses, who are say, I'm watching this happen. I'm afraid to start a business because I don't want this to happen to me. Or in my text messages from the female founders who have been criticized, sometimes fairly, sometimes totally unfairly, that like they're afraid to start another business. they're never going to raise capital again. They deleted their social media accounts because they like, you know, they'll never kind of, they're living in hiding like the poor unfortunate souls in The Little Mermaid, you know. And when I posted that tweet, they were like, thank you so much. Like, none of them, you know, I've gotten hit up by like probably 100 reporters over the last several years asking me to talk about this girl boss crap and what's gone on with these female founders after, you know, I left Nasty Gal in 2016. And I'm like, I don't know if I want anyone else to tell my story. And it puts such a, like, it's like, do I want to put the spotlight on myself again?
Yeah.
Like, am I a martyr
Yeah.
for
Why
that?
why would you subject yourself to
And
it?
none of these women will contribute. None of them will give quotes. So nobody has any idea what the bigger consequences are to women who have businesses, women who want to start businesses, and also the women who have been affected by, you know, being called out in this kind of stuff.